Welcome to the Life Unscripted. I'm your host, Rosabel Zohfeld. I'm so glad you're here. In each episode, I'll be bringing you raw, real stories and deep conversations that cover everything from personal growth and wellness to real-life challenges. I'll be chatting with incredible guests who are making an impact in their communities and sharing insights that can help us all navigate life a little better. Whether you're looking for inspiration or just a dose of real talk, you're in the right place. So grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's dive into another episode of The Life Unscripted. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Life Unscripted Podcast with Rosabel, where we dive into stories of transformation, resiliency, and the power of showing up for ourselves. I'm your host, Rosabel Zohfeld. I have with me today Amanda Bearce. She is a board-certified health wellness coach. Hi, Amanda. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be.
I am so grateful that you're here today. So, Amanda, you are the founder of Simply Wellness with Amanda, correct?
Correct. Yes. Simply Wellness with Amanda is my brainchild. I was working a corporate job, which was not it for me. I always told my husband, I got to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. Obviously I'm a grown up, but that would be my constant. This isn't it. I want to do something where I'm not, getting a pit in my stomach every Sunday night, thinking about the next day. I don't want to dread my day to day. So I one day stumbled upon something about a board certification for health and wellness coaching. And I kind of had this light bulb moment. Had never crossed my mind, but health and wellness were my jam. The interesting thing for me is when I went into this, I thought I had health and wellness down, right? I'm going to be a health and wellness coach. This is what I'm all about. But as I've grown my business, I've learned that there was so much more to health and wellness than what I thought that there was. I was mostly focused on nutrition and exercise. And while those are such important parts, there's also so much more than that. So I've shifted focus since then. And now I'm really helping women to, like you said, slow down. Everywhere we look, it's always, hustle, 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 but learning how to slow down, tune in, and really take care of ourselves.
Absolutely. And that is so important. That whole self-care is so important this day. And so in your own words, you basically, you went from that constant anxiety to feeling grounded, right? And at peace, right? So many of us are going through that right now.
Yes.
Believe me. And tell me a little bit more about, while you were going through this, you were also facing some challenges, I believe. Was it like you had a parent of yours was sick? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So when I was, I did have a sick parent, which is where my anxiety, I think, started. So that was when I was a little kid, as long as I could remember. I mean, I didn't know the name anxiety then. All through school, I would have stomach aches all the time. And my mom took me to gastroenterologists and all of these appointments, but we could never figure out what it was. And then as an adult, I had this moment where I realized, oh, that was anxiety. I've had such bad anxiety my whole life. Now that is not the case, which is if you would have asked me 7 years ago, if I thought there'd be days that I wasn't anxious, I would have laughed, because it was a constant all day, every day thing from when I was a child. And then I had a really, really tough corporate environment where toxic relationships, toxic culture, it was awful. I was at the point of anxiety where every time I took a shower, I was having a mental breakdown, because in the shower, I didn't have enough to distract me from, all the things that were happening and how much I hated my job and how awful I was being treated. I felt awful for my husband because I could tell he felt helpless. And, we realized something had to change. Luckily, I was able to get out of that and into a different corporate job, which is where I made the transition to being a business owner. But, feeling that feeling of I don't have any options. At the time, we couldn't afford for me to leave my corporate job. It was that feeling of stuck and constant anxiety was horrible.
Yeah, and so many of us women out there are going through that same situation. I've been there myself. Um,
Mm.
I'm a nurse practitioner. I don't know if you consider it, but I call it corporate America. In general, you
Yes.
may not be
Oh,
in a leader a position, but you are just in the corporate America brand, right? And I kid you not, there have been times where I've been wanting to leave a profession because burned out is a real thing. It's more real.
absolutely.
And I recently learned that there's a difference between just, oh, well, I'm feeling stressed or I'm just anxious. A little bit of anxiety here and there. I mean, stress, there's good stress. Stress changes, right?
Yeah.
Kind of goes up
Hmm.
and down. But when that moment you realize you're burned out when no matter what you do, nothing changes, nothing makes it better.
Yep.
It's like you're literally at the end of your rope. And I think at
Yep.
that moment you had to choose between your own health, your family's well-being, so many things that come to mind. But like you say, many of us are and we don't have the luxury, perhaps. You have to think, okay, when are we going to be able to make this transition, and
Hmm.
things of that nature. So it's a lot. There's a lot more than just. It's a very interesting concept. Now, early
Absolutely.
on, you talked about fearing solitude. Tell me a little
Hmm.
bit more about that.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I was at the point where I couldn't even walk from my bedroom to my closet without listening to a podcast or having music on or something like that because it was just so scary and ugly and not good inside my own head. So if you were to ask me to go into spend 15 minutes by myself, I would have rather done pretty much anything than that. I did not like to be alone. I did not like to be in my own head. If it was ever silence where I didn't have something distracting me, things were ugly. And now I love to be alone. It's one of my personal must do every week is have some time alone. That's one of the practices now that I protect very much. And I love it. It's one of the things that helps keep me well, but it's seeing that shift, remembering how it felt to be scared to be in my own head. It's one of my big motivations to help women learn to take care of themselves because it's not fun being like that. It's not we don't show up our best for our families, for ourselves, for our clients, our patients, whoever it is. We can't be the best for them if we're not taking good care of ourselves.
Absolutely. So tell me exactly what changed. When do you say, okay, this is the line that you're like, okay, from here to tell me, or was it more like a gradual change?
With a gradual change with making the decisions for myself or to make
Right.
taking care of
Well,
myself.
right. And then I know you said that you were able to finally leave. It was that the moment that you could say, okay, I'm a new person. Was it just changing your environment that caused you to feel better, or what caused you to, or or was it
Yeah.
something like it took time?
So it took time. There were many little steps along the way. Like I first started exercising regularly, and then I started eating better, and then I started journaling, and all of these little steps along the way. And then I really got to that point where I saw the difference that making that time consistently made for not just me, but made for how I show up for my family. And that was where the big change happened. And I was trying to more gradually phase out of my corporate job into owning my business and going full into my business, not owning it. But then I realized I can't do both. I'm doing the exact opposite of what I'm wanting to help people with. And then there was a big, one day I'm there, the next day I'm gone sort of thing there, which was very scary. And I will say, I think I had a little uptick of anxiety at first just because of the unknowns of the insecurities of, who's going to want me to help them, those sort of things. But now it's been about 3.5 years since I left my corporate job. And of course there are phases just like with anything, but I've truly learned to nurture myself, which is a feeling I'd never experienced before. I'm most days calm, which is also another thing. I really think my first experience with being calm was probably less than 5 years ago. And I remember crying and thinking, wait, other people feel this way? This is something I've been missing my whole life. And, those big moments really make you want more and help
My
you realize the
biggest
importance.
thing is deep down, we all walk around and we know we know that other people have issues, right? That there are things going on, but somehow, I don't know what it is. Are they really good pretenders? I mean, they seem like they have it. We know nobody has it all together. We know
They
that.
sure are. People all the time would tell me, oh, you didn't seem like that when I would talk about how I used to feel. Well, I never thought you felt that way. You don't seem like that to me. So now I always make sure people know that that was happening. Or even now, 2 weeks ago, I missed some routines that I normally do and I felt it. I make sure people know that so they don't, all the time now we're seeing everything through such a filtered lens. We're never seeing that other people are struggling, that other people have problems sleeping, that, we can't drink enough water. We all think everybody's living this like beautiful, perfect life. But yeah, lots of people are out there masking and pretending and kind of winging it, not wanting anybody else to know that there's a struggle.
Right. Because personally, I'll be honest, that is actually my problem. It is very hard for me to pretend that things are okay when they're not. I'm very, yes, I don't know. It's also a cultural thing. I mean, I just can't, it's very difficult. And so then I'm like, don't you see it? Don't you see it? But they're like, what? It's like, and so it makes me even more upset because it's like they're pretending. And so it's acting like as I'm the one who's like, I'm seeing things. I'm not seeing things. You're feeling the same way I'm feeling in a way, but you're pretending because everybody else, because that's the norm. That's how everybody, we must be calm. And I'm like, I think it's okay to act like we're human, perhaps.
Absolutely.
I think it'd be okay. And I try to, in the long term, I think it's a good thing.
I think it is too. And it's also good to let the others know around you that they're not the only ones. Because how isolating does it feel to think you're the only one that gets overwhelmed, or you're the only one that's tired, or you're the only one that forgot that big thing that was supposed to happen because you had too much on your plate. It's so helpful to know that other people feel it too, that life is a lot, because it is.
Exactly. That, yes, we do get overwhelmed. Yes, we do have, our moments. And I said something that it was kind of funny to somebody. I said, I said this. Somebody make me feel like, well, I've been doing this for 40 years. And I'm like, well, good for you. You're going to get an award. I'm going to give you the award and you're going to take it with you to heaven. Okay.
Yeah. And no matter where we are on our journeys, we have our own struggles, and everybody's life situation is not the same. Work, home, family, friends, health, all the different things play into that.
Yes, it's okay. In other words, all I'm saying is it's okay to share. It's okay to talk, because a lot of people don't share what they're going through because they're afraid of being judged, which it happens. It is very true. I mean, it's more often than none. But there's that one person. There's somebody out there. There's somebody out there that will listen. If it's nothing, if nothing else, write it down on a paper or write it down until your hand gets tired or whatever, but get it out, because I think the biggest issue is when we keep things and we bottle them up, and then one day we just go like this, and that's what causes all kind of illnesses, all kinds of problems.
Yes, the body keeps score.
That's exactly right. Oh yeah, I love that book.
It's a good one.
Yes. Now, you did mention about those small steps. Can you share a little bit more about those small intentional steps that make the big difference for you?
Absolutely. So I like to call them self-care snacks. They're easy to implement ways that you can take care of yourself throughout your day, any day. So you might not have time on an average Thursday for what I would like to call like a self-care meal where you're taking big chunks of time for yourself. But there are ways that we can incorporate self-care throughout our day, every day. And like I said, those self-care snacks. So that might be things like when you're taking a shower in the morning, take 3 extra minutes and don't rush through the shower. I know a lot of the times I hear women talking about they get in the shower and their only purpose is to get clean as fast as they can and get out. Sometimes they're seeing their phone light up and, squeegeeing off to try to peek and see what's happening. Put your phone where you can't see it. Take a shower. Take the time to smell the body wash that you so carefully picked out. Take the time to really clean your body with love, just slowing down, being present. So that's one way. Other ways are, between transitioning from one task to another, just check in with yourself. Is there something that I need right now? Am I thirsty? Could I use a little bit of a snack? Would it be a good idea before I start checking my email for me to take a quick walk outside, get some fresh air, move my body, get some sunlight? Just these little ways that you can take care of yourself throughout your day to day. If your mind is feeling overloaded with all of the things that you need to remember to do today, take 3 minutes and dump it all on paper, like a brain dump, write down all the things. So it's no longer floating around in your head. It's on paper. You've got it. It's out of your brain. But the thing with the self-care snacks is they're so easy that we forget to do them. So we really have to be intentional about checking in with ourselves. Do I need something right now? Is it something nurturing that we need? Would it be good for me to just take a few deep breaths? Or maybe on the flip side, there's something that I've really been putting off and I haven't, moved from my desk all day. And the thing that I really need right now is taking a walk, even though I don't want to. But there's so many different ways that we can less than 5 minutes, check in with ourselves and take care of ourselves so that we're not getting home at the end of the day completely drained, overwhelmed, done, and not even having the capacity to have normal conversations with our family or cook ourselves a nourishing meal.
Absolutely. You said something very important, and that is the fact that when we stop in between tasks to ask ourselves how we're feeling, like checking with ourselves, that is part of self-compassion. That is part of showing that love for ourselves. Because that is something that actually occurred to me not long ago when I had a coach, a mom coach. She said something about ask yourself, what do you need? And I'm like, oh my God, how often do we ask ourselves that question? So many people
Not
out there
enough.
don't even exactly. We don't check with our own needs.
Nope.
And if we were to do that, it's mind blowing. The huge difference that will make in so many ways.
Yeah.
And so
that's one that when I talk to clients about it at first, sometimes they give me this look like what? You want me to ask myself what I need? So I think another way that we can do that and kind of ease into it is at first, don't even plan on doing it. Just ask yourself, what do I need? And just pay attention to the information that you're getting from yourself. See if there are recurring trends. See if there is a way maybe that you can better prepare. I had a client recently say that she realized that she's so grouchy every afternoon. And as she started checking in with herself, she realized it's because she's not eating throughout the day. So she's hangry by the end of the day, but she didn't even know because she's just going from one meeting to the next, to the next, to the next, and not even stopping to check in with herself.
right. So it's part of don't ignore your body. Don't ignore what our basic needs. We often do that because again, we're so involved with what's going on and all this. It's like a big race that we gotta go to, whatever. That is exactly right. And how do you help a big Oh yep, that's exactly right. But I was gonna ask you, how do you help a busy executive who perhaps feels guilty? Like taking breaks, actually carving that time and kind of like stick with it. I know you said a little bit of it, but
yep. So the self-care snacks is usually where I start with that. Well, actually backing up, where we start with just the noticing what we need, then going into those self-care snacks. What are ways that we could easily implement this throughout our day? And then also thinking about what the benefits are. So when we're taking those self-care snacks, a lot of the times we are more productive. We're more focused. We have more energy. we are showing up better in our presentations, in our client-facing meetings, when we're meeting with other executives. So remembering that even though we're taking a few minutes away, it's giving us more because we're not feeling exhausted because we've taken that time for ourselves. So it's kind of like a balancing act, right? Even though we're taking 5 minutes away, we're more productive. So we're actually getting more stuff done, even though we've had that break, versus plowing through for hours straight and being so tired that we're making mistakes that we have to go back and double and triple check things because we're not quite focused, and paying attention because realistically, we're not going to be perfect. Some days we might stop and check in with ourselves and take care of ourselves, and some days we may not. On the days that we don't, practice that self-compassion that you're talking about. So we're not judging ourselves, we're not harsh, we're, still practicing that kindness with ourselves, but we're noticing what could have been different today if I had. I noticed yesterday when I did my self-care snacks that I didn't have that afternoon slump that I normally have. Or, I noticed that I was able to be fully present with my client instead of thinking about all the things that I was supposed to do because I took time to do that brain dump. So really using that information again when we both do it and when we don't do it to see what those benefits are, making sure that these practices that we're doing, are they actually helping us? And that helps to ease that guilt because we can see the benefits of it, that it actually is helping something, that we're making a difference in doing it.
Absolutely. And then another key topic is resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And you also defining as showing up even when it's hard, or showing up for
Mm-hmm.
yourself even when it's hard.
Yep.
Can you give us an example of a moment when you actually had to show up for yourself even though it was hard, there was fear, or you were, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. So my favorite example to use for that is one thing that happens, I notice, is that when things get busy, we have a tendency to, I'll get back to that after, when things slow down. And me personally, and this is something like I was just talking about my alone time that I'm so intentional about. But 2 weeks ago, I was, I'm feeling good. I'm going to skip it this week. And by the end of the week, having a rough week, I can tell I've missed some of my practices and had to have a little moment with myself where I checked in and realized, even though I don't have time for it this week, it's something that I have to make time for. Otherwise, the rest of the week is going to be just as hard as it has been. And I try, myself, and generally I'm pretty good about it. But of course, I'm not perfect because I am a human. But to remember that in those times when things are really hard, I need to actually double down versus stepping back from those. When my plate is overloaded, when things are happening outside of work, maybe there's a hard family situation going on, but using that to remind myself, this is where it really matters. I'm practicing during the good times so that I have this foundation solid during the times where it's hard. Another one for me that's really big that I have to, especially when times are hard, cannot be flexible with is getting enough sleep, going to bed on time. And people sometimes make fun of me about it, but it's one of those things when I am not carving out time to wind down, to get to bed on time, to get enough sleep, I can tell all of my coping mechanisms kind of go out the window, and it just leaves me on shaky grounds.
Yeah, it can do it for, I mean, our brains like consistency, likes
Absolutely.
routine. So
Mm-hmm.
if we want to function well, if we want to have good cognitive functioning of all our abilities, whatever, I notice that, when you don't have, I am one of those that if I don't get a good night's sleep, I don't. And so I make sure that I get a good night's sleep. And that
Mm-hmm.
can make a whole difference in the entire world.
Yeah. And that's a way that we're practicing self-compassion in a different way, kind of a fiercer self-compassion, is
Yes.
protecting those things that we really need.
Yeah, those are our boundaries, which are also very important.
Oh,
That
yes.
we need to have.
So
And for
important.
listeners that might feel stuck today, what would you say will be the first step to showing up for themselves?
I would say the first step is to recognize that you don't have to do it all at once. That the way to make consistent and sustainable change is to make small, intentional changes, things that you can do consistently instead of, on the flip side, thinking about revamping our entire life starting on Monday, where we're going to change 25 things all in 1 week and we're going to be a different human by Friday. Unfortunately, that's not the way that things actually work. Those small intentional changes and paying attention to how those feel for you. Not everything you try is going to work. Not everything that works for your best friend is going to work for you. So really checking in with yourself. Is this what I need? Is it working for me? Am I seeing benefits? And just as you make changes, small, steady, consistent is really the way to go.
Absolutely. And, having all those, going through that myself, I know exactly what you're talking about. But at the same time, I want to mention there's also that big word, overwhelm, which is so common, more common than we can possibly think. So in your coaching, how do you help those women move from feeling overwhelmed by in fact, I'll be honest with you. Some people say, but remember, you probably go through this when you tell someone, well, let's talk about self-care. No, I don't have the time. They're like, it's still in that. How do you can change that from feeling like, oh my God, it's so frightening, to move from this stage where I am right now to actually feel energized and get that leap, because it's kind of like a leap it's a jump sometimes. It feels like
it is a jump, and that overwhelm is so real.
Yes.
I like to remind women that you are your most valuable resource. So if we're not taking care of ourselves, that we're going to have that overwhelm. But there's a few different things that we can look at. And one of the places that I like to start is looking at your emotional battery and paying attention as you move through your day-to-day to what drains you. Also, it's very much important to see what energizes you, where you're feeling like you're in flow, what brings you calm. But when we're wanting to reduce that overwhelm, what's draining you? Are there things that are draining you that we can say no to or limit your time on, set more boundaries around? And a lot of the time there's things that people are doing that are not bringing them joy, that there are not things that they have to do. Of course, sometimes there are things that we cannot get away from, but a lot of the times we have extra commitments that we don't have to do. So learning to say no, learning to delegate, learning to cut out things that are like, mindless scrolling. I know it's so easy to get sucked into that endless TikTok scroll, but is that something that's actually recharging your battery? A lot of the times, no. So finding those areas that we can cut out things that are existing before we think about even adding on anything else.
Absolutely. Amanda, if our listeners were to remember one thing, only one thing today, what would you want it to be?
I would want it to be that, it's funny because I just said this, but that you are your most valuable resource. And if you don't take care of you in 5 years, think about where you'll be if you keep going at the pace that you're going without making any intentional change.
Amanda, where can our listeners find more information about you?
The best place to find me is my website, simplywellnesscoach.com, and to sign up for my newsletter. I send it out once a week, quick, easy reads with actionable steps. I'm also on social media, but the best way for consistent messaging from me is through that newsletter on my website.
Very good. And on your website, I'm sure that you have those the links to your different social media platforms in case somebody. Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna sign for your newsletter.
All right. It's my favorite part. I never would have thought I would have been someone who likes to send a newsletter, but it fills me up as I write it every week.
They can be helpful. They can be definitely helpful. I received some of those and some, and they'll find the right people, when you
Yes.
never know. Sometimes you're going through your email and something comes out in the moment that you need it the most. And that's when you're like, oh, okay. And so we never know. That's what I say the same thing. We have these talks during the podcast we have, and people may not listen right away, but I don't know, in a month later, somebody's just going through a channel or whatever. It might do something to it. It's just when they need it, and that's
Yep.
the idea, to help others, because
Absolutely.
once again, we recognize that we're human and we don't have it all together. So
Nope. Even if it looks that way.
that's exactly right. Those are the people that scare me a little bit when they look so composed. I'm like, I wonder.
Yeah. What's going on in there?
Right, exactly. Not so much for curiosity, but you know.
Right.
Is there anything I have not asked you that perhaps you said, I really wanted to get this out there?
Hmm. No, I don't think so. Those were great questions, and I think we covered what I do in a pretty good
In a
nutshell there.
nutshell, very much.
Yeah.
Any workshops, anything coming up, anything new?
I don't have anything on the schedule right now, but I'm hoping in the fall to have some more stuff that's not just, private groups coming up in the fall.
That's awesome. Any big stories, like you could say, oh my God, this is why I do what I do, like a testimony or anything like that you can share with us?
Ooh, on the spot. That's a tricky one for exact verbiage. I will say that, one of my favorite things, and I had one today, is, when clients really feel that it's working and we sit down and we talk about, what were you working on? How's it going? And when they say, I did what I had planned and I felt so good, my coworkers noticed, I felt the calm within myself. And one of my favorite things that I like to hear is that the people around them then start taking care of them too. So my client today was telling me that she has been practicing this, that it's been hard. She's actually had a lot of resistance at home, but then her teenage daughter yesterday told her that she needed to take some time for herself. And that for me it's not just working for you, but it's working for those around you. And I love those moments.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights and all this wisdom. I mean, that comes with earlier I was gonna say something, with the small step. It's trial and error, as you say. What may work for one person may not work, and that's what we need to know. That a lot of things in life is just trial and error, and
Yep.
we just
Sure
got
is.
to take that first step and first recognize, okay, there's something we need to fix, or there's an issue going on. Next thing is just like make that decision. So I want to thank everyone and every one of our listeners for spending this time with us, for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel or to the Life Unscripted podcast. I always have blogs of every conversation that I have here. I have an article and then I'll send. So all the information that we share here, how to get in touch with Amanda and all and so on, websites and links of every kind, it will be there. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Amanda, for this time. And until next time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
You're welcome. If you enjoyed this episode of Rosabel Unscripted Podcast, here's how you can support our show. Visit www.rosabelzohfeld.com to learn more about my work, subscribe to my newsletter, and get updates on upcoming episodes. Head over to my YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and turn on notifications. Your subscription not only motivates me to keep creating, but also helps others discover these conversations. Share this episode with a friend or colleague. I want to invite you, yes, you listening right now, to check out my book, The Courage to Succeed: A True American Dream. It is available now on Amazon and also Barnes & Noble. This is a story of resilience, grit, and what it really means to chase your dreams, even when the odds are stacked against you. If you ever face fear, failure, or uncertainty, this book will meet you right there and remind you that courage always has a voice. Just search The Courage to Succeed: A True American Dream by Rosabel Zohfeld on Amazon, or head to the link in the show notes, because your dream is worth it and your courage can take you there.